thank you guys. We're going to shift gears a little bit here, talk to some of our portfolio companies. This is probably our third or fourth conversation now that we've had in this format.
In 3 or 4 different countries.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So good seeing you as always.
You as well, Joe.
So I'm going to have you do the usual bit. Explain the lanyards for those in the audience who do not know you or do not understand.
So lanyards, they started by accident in like 21 when COVID ended. There was like 5 conferences going on at the same time in New York. Didn't know which conference building I was walking into. It was just easier to wear them all. And then it just turned into a thing. And like all things that turn into things,
It's remained a thing.
it remained a thing.
So before we dive into the topic of the day, explain a little bit about what Manifest is, what you all are building, and what you do.
So Manifest, Manifest Network, Manifest AI, we all sort of fall under, we have a lot of different sort of subnames. In the simplest terms, we are sovereign compute. Anywhere you use the word AWS, Azure, Ali, GCP, you can replace with Manifest. We run 17 data centers right now around the world: Singapore, Australia, Japan, Frankfurt, London, 11 in North America, 1 in Canada, or jokingly like to say 12 in the US. You know,
I get it.
And so bare metal, Kubernetes, and storage. We're sort of dev heavy on that. We don't, because we're running that sovereign own and control your stack piece. There's a couple of things that have moved along in the last couple months and how things have changed. We saw a lot of people with amazing ideas, but everyone comes at you and they're like, I need an H100. And you're like, okay, I have a car lot of cars. What kind of car do you want? I want an H100. Well, how large? What would you do in parallel? They're like, I want 10 of them. And I'm like, well, they come in 8s or 4s or 6, and so a lot of education is needed on the compute and inference side of things. And so we haven't really made a name for it. We had a Lifted Labs, but I almost want to call it like Dream Factory, where there's good teams or there's good starts of teams that are building an idea and a product, and we want to get them across the finish line on the dev side. Obviously deploying on Manifest so that like they have and control their stack rather than taking the easy route through like AWS, because that's how AWS, Google, and everyone else gets you in, is with these credits and stuff like that. But then you're locked into modularity, you can't scale, and obviously you're not decentralized.
Right. Let's talk a little bit. Let's wind the clock back. Is this the first startup you founded? Have you been a founder before?
Yeah, I've been a part of a lot of projects. Personally, I got into mining in 2012 as a Bitcoin miner. I ran a sports book, and everyone that took cash, eventually, I got my hands on the white paper and found out that some people would take Bitcoin. So started as a miner, because I was like, I can give this free stuff I get to to other people, and instead of cash. I'm like, hell yeah. 2016, 2017 worked for a couple ICOs that, just did the, thing and stuff. And that sort of like made me realize what kind of person I wanted to be in this space. Obviously I was used because I can talk, so I was a front facing person and stuff, but like I could understand a lot of concepts, and because I worked on a lot of different things. But the people today are just so freaking smart on builders. And so what I really tried to do is give voices in a way. And so that's sort of what I do on our project, and being a core member and stuff. But we're all infrastructure builders, and so I've gone through the NFT route. I started a game company, my first game company in 2019, 2020. Started off as a token and then turned into a game. Taco Cat. I don't know if anyone has heard of that. I'm sorry.
I remember that one.
I'm sorry. We cry, good things. But the funnest joke out of that is I like to say is I was Kevin O'Leary's boss. He was doing cameos at that time. So I literally had him do a cameo for our shitcoin. And like, just to be a jerk or see what I could do, I had him redo it like 4 times. So every time I hear Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, talk about crypto, I'm like, ha, I was your boss.
I love it. How do you view the distinction or similarities of being a founder and being a builder? Is it the same thing? Does one involve more leadership?
So a little bit on the leadership, like builders can be founders. but not all founders can be builders, sort of like fingers and thumbs. But they're, especially in startups and in these lean situations you're a person of many hats. And like, what's really cool with all of the tools out there that AI is producing is you can literally learn. Like, we used to use YouTube videos to learn how to like change out things that we never knew before, that like the mechanic charged you $1,000 for. And you're like, wait, there's a 30-second YouTube video that teaches me how to do it myself. Now there's tools and apps in AI that are teaching founders and builders how to make just as simple, like brand guides even, and like taking a lot off the table. And so people are afraid of losing jobs. No, it was never their job to begin with. People are just learning how to do stuff themselves. And so it's a hard process because a lot of builders, like they need a direction. They need to be told what to do. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because they can get that to there, but they don't know what the framework is,
Yeah, it takes a different mindset to get up every day and not have someone tell you do this, this, and this, and just kind of knowing where to steer the ship. When you started Manifest, I guess, what did you have in mind? How does the picture of what you were trying to build compare to what you've actually built?
So, Manifest was started by a lot of ICP expats, pre-launch, as I, like to say. Eric Bravik, the lead engineer and designer behind ICP, and the expats there. The idea was do on day one what ICP had on their roadmap in year 10. And so this free internet, this free compute layer that sort of was an idea from people that had been building networks around the world, from the Web 2 side. And so sort of now how we're sort of running this is a lot of these projects have been running in Web 3, extracting from Web 3 to give to Web 2. And we're not really extracting, but we're trying to utilize Web 2 to give back to Web 3. And so it's a really hard blend. Like, how do you have physical contracts on chain, And so like our node program that we ran, we did a raise back in like 23, and then we shut down our node program in like mid 24. We're actually just now opening up again because we didn't want to be hyperscalers. And so the idea was like build as needed, not build a whole bunch and then try to fill in the gaps at like discounts,
like a just in time mindset.
Because then you're scraping, and then who knows what kind of services. And so one of the really cool things that we're doing different is we use a proof of authority module that we developed on Cosmos. So our whole hardware network is a proof of authority piece, meaning the hardware has been third-party audited, and we're running in SOC 2 ISO compliant facilities. So I want to say enterprise grade DPIN, so that Web 2 projects can utilize Web 3 services, because like we heard earlier, and we all know this, decentralized AI is going to outmaneuver centralized AI. It's just a matter of time. And what's really cool is we're immutable. So we're going to stay around a lot longer, and we don't have to go to the government for like, a $1.5 trillion backstop.
When you're building a project or you're building a company, how do you know when to pivot versus when to double down? Running a company requires flexibility, but it also requires some stubbornness. So how do you know what's your framework of thinking on when to double down versus when to pivot?
This is a hard thing, especially when you're having a lot of people transition into Web 3 from Web 2, especially on the marketing side. Like, I've handed marketing off a bunch of times. So in the last 2 years alone, have had 3 brand redos. And I'm like, why? Well, as someone said that didn't look right. Well, like, that's that person, like in Web 3, one of the two biggest things, the two things that got me here, consistency and transparency. So even if you're slightly doing it wrong, you just sort of like ingrain yourself. Like Aave, remember how like old school 8-bit UI it was forever. And then they upgraded to something pretty, and it just fricked with everyone's mind. So the whole pivoting piece, it's a grind. And so it technically, what I tell a lot of people and founders and how we help with like in accelerators is build something you would use, because then you like, if you're willing to use it, someone else is going to. But if you don't even need this tool, if it's not for you, then you're how are you going
Who's
to
it for?
yeah, how do you know you're going to make product market fit? And like what is PMF for you? Is it one company? Is it two companies? Is it three users? Like, and so it's a really hard thing. Like, obviously, if like you just get a whole bunch of hate mail nonstop, then yeah, maybe pivot. Um, but if it's like you're building a community around you, build it. And if it's something that you're going to use, keep going. And I know this, like, you, sometimes the hardest thing to do is say no to a VC that's like, hey, if you change this, I'll give you money. And like sometimes you're at a point where you're like, I have to either pay employees or pay friends, or I need to feed my family, or I need to feed myself, you know? And so it can be really hard. But then that's when you start making concessions. And those start to pile up to where then the next thing you know, your product was never even your original product.
Right. You're so far away from where you started that it doesn't look like anything that you were
But
setting out to build.
what's really horrible is that that's not always a bad thing. Some really cool things have come out of that. Like, look at Viagra.
Great example.
No, it's not. But it was a good one.
I think of like kind of like Apple, with Steve Jobs and the iPhone. Back before the iPhone, everybody wanted a physical keyboard. Then when people came out when Steve came out with the iPhone and it didn't have a physical keyboard, everybody thought he was nuts. There was, I think, didn't Microsoft do a funeral for the iPhone or something?
Yeah.
But he just knew that this was something he would use. And he was building something so great and so special that he knew it would catch on. So I think that's the kind of that's the founder that builds something truly revolutionary.
Yeah. And even like in that case, what he was looking at was he was reducing the amounts of failure as well, because every key could be a point of failure. Now, BlackBerry or Crackberry, as those of us that used it back then, we loved that. We loved a physical keyboard, but it was a very quick exchange to it as well. So the pivot can happen.
Yeah. Tell us about your bunker.
So
I love the bunker.
So we have two data centers that are nearing completion. They are 1970s, 1960s, 80s, Cold War era telecom data centers, subterranean, shielded. And so they were made, we have one outside Indianapolis and we have one in Montana that basically they're EMP resistant. So you could say technically nuke proof. We have a lot of chains that are lining up because they all want to be cockroaches that survive in the best way. Say the marketing for we're nuke proof sort of like fixes any Cloudflare issue.
It does.
Yeah.
What comes next? Next 6 months, what do you see happening in the industry? What are you all building, and what can we expect to see?
6 months. I'm trying to figure out my schedule for the rest of the year. But
60 days.
Okay, so one of the things that we're doing, obviously, we're reopening up our Node program personally, so we're doing a lot of meetings on that. We've sort of restructured our team a little bit. Our enterprise AI arm, Gember, we've shifted them off so that they can be a standalone entity because they're working with a lot of Web 2 companies. Our internal team, our external node operator system, is a franchise, and so that's expanding. Obviously with our Dream Factory, we're just taking that off the ground, and so some of the big pieces that we're seeing here is deeper integration with Morpheus. I'm a code contributor and team member of Morpheus as well. And so we're integrating more as inference for Morpheus there's so much going on with Morpheus. It's not even funny, and hard. But the business side of that is growing as well. But the integration of other chains and networks that are building on Manifest is really good. We want to see more projects building on us, and we want to help more projects build. So seeing that, like the team is like, we want to get to a point to where, like a team a week we're onboarding almost, or a day. But that's Eric in positivity thinking. I'm like a week, because we want to make sure everything's working for them. And it's this white glove approach that Web3 sort of brings to the table, where you get to talk to founders directly. Like not only just at how many DNA events have I sat and talked with Yatsu, but how many times I've talked with him around the world around about just games and stuff like that, or like other random people that like if they were a Web2 CEO, you would like never get.
Not a chance.
If your name's Taco dressed like this, like I was shaking hands with Eric Trump last week, so like this is crazy times to be alive.
Where can people get connected with you, and how could a developer get involved?
So our Twitter handle is Manifest Network. I'm Player1Taco. Find me. Obviously, you can always find us through DNA House, at DNA Fund, and but around the world, I look like this.
Hard to miss.
Yeah, and so there's 1,000 ways to get to us. Manifest.network is our website. And if you're a developer or dev, one of the biggest things that we wanted to talk about is there's a big shift for dev shops and developers themselves. It used to be a developer used to host for companies like that they were doing projects for, and that's how they made like residual income, was hosting. Now the next step is providing inference. And so being able to set yourself up to where you, as a developer, you're able to provide private, permissionless, uncensored AI inference at a like significant discount to what the market standard is, but it's just as good, if not better, to your clients. That's one of the big things, because then we're looking at the long-term developer build, and so it's really cool. Obviously, hopefully the market's going to rebound, but then it's going to have the tax season sell off. I'm happy. I remember when Bitcoin was $13. So anything above that, woo.
Taco, thanks so much. Always a pleasure.
Joe, pleasure,
Yep.
man.